Welcome back to another episode of Ballroom Chat, a podcast dedicated to sharing the dance journey. I'm your host, Samantha with Love.Live.Dance. Before I introduce this week's guest, I wanted to just take a moment to mention the unfortunate news that Ron Montez has passed away. He fought a long, hard battle against COVID-19, and unfortunately, the dance community lost him earlier this week. I did not really know Ron, but I felt like I knew Ron, which is a weird thing to say. Had the opportunity to meet him at one competition, very passingly, and then had the immense pleasure of talking with him as part of this podcast. And even from just those two brief moments, you felt his warmth and his positive energy and the fact that he was so passionate about this dance world that we all live in. But he didn't see himself as this great figure. He was a friend to everyone that he met. I think the outpouring of love and sharing stories that you see on Facebook and Instagram this past week from everyone in the dance community is really just a testament to what an amazing man he is. I am re-recording this intro because originally I was going to insert an amazing video put together by Ennio Cordoba talking about how we can support Ron during this time and the GoFundMe that they had set up to help support his medical costs. I will include the GoFundMe link because those medical expenses still exist. And I'm sure that the dance community still wants to support Ron's family as much as we possibly can. So, yeah. On to lighter topics. Today's guest is a fellow podcaster. He's also a champion coach and dancer. And we got to sit down and talk a little bit about just generally the dance world. It was not an interview this time around. It was more of a conversation, which was a very nice change of pace. So please enjoy my conversation with Ikaika Dowsett. Thank you, Ikaika, for being a guest on today's podcast.
It's exciting.
For folks that maybe aren't familiar with you, how did you get into the ballroom dance world, and what does your dance journey so far look like?
Let's see. I'll give the short version because I always find this to be the least interesting part. I grew up a dancer, sort of doing other things. Hula. I grew up in Hawaii. Hula, breakdancing in the 90s, whatever was popular, with the girls back then. As many, as Wayne said himself, right? It's just, you're a teenager, you want to go out and meet girls.
Yes.
So I was doing that. Met some girl essentially who was into ballroom. Figured, well, I could do, could spin on my head. So some ballroom stuff seems pretty easy. I started taking some classes. Wasn't so easy, but it kind of got me some momentum. Asked her out. It was fun little whirlwind we had. And then I'd sort of been bitten by the bug. I had never really competed in the other dances, and then I thought that was, when I saw that was an avenue, I decided to kind of see where that goes. And it seemed that I was had a knack for it in some capacity. I mean, I competed in other things, martial arts, track, stuff like that, but not dancing. So I thought I'd give it a shot. And one thing led to another. Thought I'm not going to find a partner here in Hawaii. So I just sort of moved to the mainland, to the only major city that had, a distant relative near. And so I moved to the Bay Area. and just hopes, I don't know, hopefully I'll find a partner. There's partners, right? As long as you're not in Hawaii, there are partners everywhere. And obviously that wasn't the case. A funny thing is I got turned down by almost every tryout that I had when I first came.
Oh
Well, I found
no.
out, good in Hawaii is not very good, elsewhere, at the time anyway. So, and even my whole concept of what was good was off. So, but eventually, still kept practicing on my own, having some lessons on my own. And eventually someone gave me a shot, and then it was sort of off to the races. So, and yeah, been here ever since. I didn't really plan on doing this like as a career of any sort. I was mostly in tech, which is another reason the Bay Area made sense, and part of why I like doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, and amateur career was going pretty well. People asked for lessons, kind of one thing leads to another, and then you're just doing it.
Yeah, you wake
And so
up one day and you're
that's
like,
the
oh,
quick
I
version
guess
of
I'm
how
a
I got here.
professional dancer.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how long. So at the time, it was a sort of a big deal whether or not you were pro or amateur, because there was this big distinction to whether or not you could teach as an amateur. This is back, the NDCA and USA Dance. Well, it wasn't even USA Dance; it was USABDA at the time, and they were still friends. So the proficiency point system was sort of shared across, in a way, both systems, and they also had the same sort of idea of when you could teach, when you can't teach, and generally at the time you could only teach if you were like officially you could only teach if you were in the top 10, top 25% maybe of the champ level of amateur. Then you were allowed to teach, and if allowed is a funny word, right? Like who's going to stop you, right?
Yeah.
But then the idea was that they would suspend you or make you automatically turn pro, or like there were like things that would happen. I've never seen anything happen to anyone back then, but the goal was sort of like, oh, if I want to teach, I need to get to this level. So that was kind of a fun thing. And right after, they were just like, we can't really police it, so you don't need to do that anymore. So yeah, I mean, now professional even is sort of you compete as a pro. That's really about it, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
definitely.
so
I feel like they crack down a little bit harder, or at least I've heard stories of them cracking down a little bit harder on the pro-am side. If an amateur student is competing in a pro-am division but also teaching, they're a little bit faster to place sanctions. But even then, I think it's a little bit hit and miss in the optics of amateur versus professional, teaching versus not teaching is a little bit interesting.
yeah, it's very serious in the pro am. I think the rules are quite severe. Like you can't even like assist someone in a group class, something like that, right? Like it's really really strict. I'm not really sure. I mean, I can kind of see why they do that. I mean, how are you in tune with the pro am scene? Like, I mean,
Yes and no. I do not have a professional partner at the moment. So from a competition standpoint, I'm only competing with students that are doing pro-am. That's really how I
great.
got my start, is on the amateur side and then switching to the professional side. So the pro-am world, I know a little bit more than the competitive adult amateur or the professional end of competition.
So yeah, it's a pretty competitive world. Like, I don't want to step on anyone's feet, but the especially the sort of higher up they go, there tends to be a lot of cattiness and really paying attention to, well, what are the other competitors doing? And like it's, I guess in anything, it's sort of toward the top, you start paying attention to stuff like politics and all that stuff. And so, like you said, with the optics, if some student is assisting or teaching or whatever, that somehow makes them better, or like something like that, so, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems fine, whatever, I guess, if you're doing pro-am, don't teach, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you
Either
want to
don't.
start teaching, it's sort of true, right? Like if you want to start teaching, go compete in the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
guess, I guess I don't really have an opinion on it, but I'm always curious about how these things happen, right? I assume the powers that be are sort of more experienced and wiser people who have a different macro view of the industry and try and do the very difficult job of balancing it and picking out, the least bad solution most of the time, since you can never make everyone happy. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is an impossible job.
absolutely. And to your point, we can only hope that those that are in positions of power are seeing the grander picture that we don't see at our level. So hopefully steering the direction of the dance sport in a positive way for all of us. I want to dial back. So you were doing hula and breakdancing and then got into this ballroom world. Were you doing all 19 dances, 10 dance? Were you specifically doing standards, specifically doing Latin?
Yeah, at the time I sort of wanted to do, well, at the time I pretty much only wanted to do Latin because that was the cooler music, I guess. Um, and I had this, I'd seen too many movies where Latin was the, oh, that's what the girls like. And it's funny, I also, since I grew up doing a lot of martial arts, I had this, I don't know, I had this very maybe classical martial arts, sort of Japanese traditional sort of approach to studying or practicing, that like whatever the sensei says you do, you don't really ask questions, you just do it. Sensei is the boss. And the first person I took private lessons with, and who I happened to be a former Japanese 10 dance champion.
Mm.
And so I was kind of fooling around with all 19 dances, all 27 weird stuff, whatever. I just did it. I didn't care. I wanted to like kind of do it all. Mostly Latin though. And then I had my first or second private lesson with her. I wanted to work on Latin. She's like, okay, well, we should do some ballroom too. And like I think I did like a one figure in ballroom, like just a natural turn, which is no good. But she's like, oh, I'm sorry, but you were born a ballroom dancer. You should probably stop doing all that other stuff. And she goes, I just don't think there's enough time to really focus on everything, right? She's like, if what you're telling me is you want to be good and you want to, you need to spend your time wisely. So you should probably focus on that.
Mm.
And it was kind of weird when I say this story. I was like, weird. I said, okay. And I just dropped everything immediately. I didn't really think twice. And I think it was that influence. But yeah, it ended up being a good decision because I think she was right. So yeah, that was my last day as a 19 anything dancer, and it was just the 5 dances from then on.
Well, and
So I did do a few competitions, local competitions, doing all 19 dances, and I think again because the pool was limited, I think I won everything in every style. So I get to say, oh yeah, I used to be a 19 dance. I don't know if I was technically, I think I was like the state champion. I don't remember. Yeah, but yeah, small pond,
Yeah, yeah, I totally feel you there with small pond, and then suddenly realizing, oh, the world is much bigger, and I am much smaller than I thought I was. Um, it, I,
Yeah.
I think it's always interesting to, especially those of us that started in high school or college, in the U.S., how often it is that we are starting out like 19 dance. We dance, all 10 dances in international, all 9 dances in American. And then somewhere along the line, someone is like, I think you really need to just focus on this one quadrant. You just need to focus on this one, style. I had the same thing. I was super passionate about American rhythm. And then I had a coach that was like, if you were planning on going pro, you're 5'10". You want to do American smooth. Just trust me on this. I was like,
I couldn't
okay.
tell you 5'10". This camera's no good.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. I'm 6'2". It's. I mean, I get it now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have been slow.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to do mambo or
Funny thing
swing.
is that tall people aren't meant for this really in any capacity. I
Yeah.
found, I've realized over the years, it's in ballroom, we've had one champion in the last 40 years, maybe. So 30 years, certainly 30 years, that's been over 6 feet.
Yeah.
And I don't know, people have this idea, well, if you're tall, you're better suited for ballroom. Yes, but but it's still losing, it's still not great. Yeah, it's
Right.
better to be right around that mid-range. Everything from just like power to weight ratios, like injury risk, stamina, all that stuff tends to be better when you're a little more in that average range. And then you have like weird things that people don't really think about, which is finding a partner, right? It's
Yeah.
easier if you're in the most common height range, because you can dance with all the people that are also in the most common height range, right? It's like if you're on the tail ends, it's much these God forbid these partner searches for you are much longer and arduous. As a tall person, yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's just trouble, all kinds of trouble.
It's absolutely no, and exactly for all of the reasons you just mentioned, right? Like from a stamina perspective, if you are trying to move a 5/5 frame at Viennese waltz or quick step tempo, you have less frame to move. If you're trying to move a 6 foot frame to Viennese waltz or quick step, or God forbid jive, um, you've
Yeah.
got more of your body and more muscle mass that has to move to keep that same tempo.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, trying to find a partner. I imagine as a 6 foot gentleman, you probably have to opt out a lot of ladies, just because the height difference when you get into frame is so dramatic. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 5'10" flat foot, so put me in 2.5 inch heels. Suddenly, I need to find someone that's 6'1" to dance with. That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure what my, because your intra height ratios, leg to torso, that can make a big difference. I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm somewhere around the middle. I may even have a longer torso, which is good, right? It gives me a little
Mm-hmm.
more options to dance at a height that's with partners that are a little shorter. What my last amateur partner, for instance, she was 5'4" on a good day, I think, and so we had a lot to work to do to make that work,
Yeah.
but it was doable. Her legs are up to her neck,
Mm.
so that was a nice. So yeah, head wise, we had this huge difference, but if you looked at our middles, they were
It
actually pretty
worked.
good, so
Yeah.
we could work that out. But in general, yeah, it's I've found it's better to stick to people, 5'7" plus, 5'6" on the low range,
Yeah.
but leg, in ballroom, leg height, so the height of the hips is really more relevant. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, for you, yeah, I mean, so that on the other side, I got so used to having to dance with some, this sort of 5'7" range, which is
Yeah.
still tall, that whenever I would dance with, like, have a tryout with someone who's like 5'9", 5'10", you would think that oh, this feels right. But actually, sometimes their hips, if they have long legs for their, on top of that, it's like, okay, that's too tall, right?
Yeah.
It's all impossible.
Yeah.
We should be grateful for getting one person to dance with us, really.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
Are
You,
you are you married or anything? Do you, because people say that finding a husband is easier than finding a partner. I'm not sure if that you resonates with you.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm married. We celebrated 5 years, in December. He does not
Mm,
dance. He's very supportive of me dancing, but he is not a dancer. So yeah.
I
and
see.
and that's also a weird thing too. I feel like as a female, either amateur or professional, that is married or has a significant other that's not dancing, that is actively searching for a partner, I feel like that's a weird conversation to have in
Mm,
tryouts too, because in tryouts so often you're not only figuring out if the mechanics of the dance partnership work, if the levels are suitably matched, if you move in the same way. You're also figuring out, okay, do you have chemistry, in that can I stand to put in 40 hours a week with this other person without driving them insane or driving me
mm.
insane? And then you somehow get into this relationship. Where are the boundaries? What are our expectations for this partnership outside of the competitive ballroom field? And just, it's an interesting world to try and navigate.
Yeah, chemistry is a boy. It's a Yeah. Talk about upside and downside, right? Because the thing you want to have is where a lot of your problems are coming from, right? From the fact that when you have chemistry, you tend to get maybe just attached a little faster because you get along. You're having good times at first, and then the fights are extra explosive usually. And then also it's like if things go well, it's you have this weird question I've seen happen over and over with people. It's like, well, I get along great with this person. We're kind of building this career together. It's sort of the dream to waltz through life with your mate, and I spend so much time with them. We touch, all this. And yeah, I've seen a lot of relationships that were intact before these nice chemistry bearing partnerships got together fall apart rather quickly after that, because it's hard to compete with a dance partnership, or at least it appears to be hard to compete with a dance partnership that's really going well and you get along and you dance together and all this stuff. How's a normal person, a muggle, as my friend calls them, how's a muggle supposed to compete in a muggle relationship with a fantastically successful and, you know, chemically enjoyable partnership, right?
Yeah. But then on the flip side, too, at least for me, I always separate ballroom dancing is my profession. So, in the same way that, you might have a 9 to 5 tech job, you aren't married to your 9 to 5 tech job. You have a life outside of work. I think I've always kind of brought that with me when I've been trying to find a partner, and maybe it's because of that I haven't found a professional partner. But I always look at it as, whether it's teaching or the podcast or competing, that's my job. That can't be all encompassing in my life. And for me to have, some sanity, some mental stability, I like to create a separation between what happens at the studio and what happens at my house, so to speak. But that's just me. How about you? How do you navigate
Do you love it?
that?
Do you love dancing?
Oh
Well,
my
I mean,
gosh.
yeah, I got full buy-in once I decided. Well, I mean, I do other things, right? Like I do a lot of uh, work in, let's say, other fields,
Mm.
but I love this. This doesn't even really like, if I started teaching for free forever from now, I'd probably be fine. So it's not, it's what I love to do the most, but it's not like a main driver of my life, as far as whether or not my life's going to work out.
Yeah.
So because of that, um, because I love it like that, I'm okay to like eat, sleep, and breathe it in a way. Like I can come home and watch. I don't really come home and watch dance videos as much as I used to, but I'll do that, right? Like I'll check competition results, talk to my friends about stuff. So I actually am fine with it sort of infusing everything in my life, and probably because if too much time passes without me being involved in the world in some way, I get a little like itchy. So yeah, so for me, I don't have that, and I'm not sure if this is what you meant, but I don't have that
Mhm.
sort of work-life balance thing.
Mm.
It's all just, it's like Jeff Bezos says, he's like it's more like about work-life harmony,
Mm.
right? So if it's some way where it feels like there's a harmony of it all and it's enough in either, good, great, but yeah, I take home work, well, take work home with me. I'm thinking about all the issues I have to deal with my couples, or one of the university teams, or um yeah, this the podcast, yeah, all of it, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
I and much to my to I think in let's say previous relationships, I think people have a little bit trouble with how obsessed I am with what to them just seems like work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not good at that particular. Yeah, it never, almost never off for me.
Well, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination claiming that I've got it figured out. There are still
Yeah.
moments that I have, sleepless nights where I'm like, oh, I need to think about how to reach this student a little bit better. Or, oh gosh, that routine needs to be changed because I don't like how that looked in the last video. It's a never ending struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. People that well, yeah, romantic partners of mine are constantly making fun of me over the years for the fact that I I talk in my sleep. I'm teaching in my sleep all the time, and then some percentage of that time I actually sit up and like wave my arms around and scream and point
Oh
while
no.
sleeping. Um,
Sleep
while
dancing.
teaching. Yeah, so sleepless nights are I wake up exhausted. So I'm right there with you.
You mentioned the podcast.
Mm.
It's so nice to talk to someone who is also in this space, because I feel like we can commiserate
Yeah.
and learn from each other. How did the Framework podcast begin? What was the idea behind starting a podcast?
So I was having a bunch of conversations with friends, sort of usually at comps. We'd either, if I was judging, then during the lunch break, we'd go in the back and have talks about what we had just seen, and oftentimes those what started as disagreements started to turn into interesting talks about, well, I think you should do this, I think you should that, what's the morality behind choosing one thing or the other, like really sort of deep interesting subjects. And or just after a competition, we'd watch and go up to the pro party or the post pro party in someone's room and chat. And um people just started saying that, like, oh, I gotta go, but can you guys tell me later what you guys talked about and all this stuff. And then someone makes a comment like, oh, you should record these. And it was pretty organic like that. I just thought, okay, well, I guess I'll start recording.
Yeah.
It did lose a little bit of its sort of intended, just people wanting to be a fly on the wall to just real conversations we were having. And it sort of turns into this sort of interview nature, which isn't really what I intended it to be. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of no way around it.
Mm-hmm.
For the other person, right? They think, oh, we scheduled this thing. Well, we're going to talk about something. You're going to ask me questions. I don't really know you yet, right? Like,
Right.
what am I going to say? I'm going to tell you how my kids are doing. I don't know.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, but I just wanted to have. I think ultimately, I wanted to have sort of some of the difficult conversations, um, or I wanted them to be more public. I wanted people to know that we are thinking about these sort of things. And then I wanted the people who don't have access, like there's a sort of a tier thing, in the dance
Mm-hmm.
world. You've at the high end, you have the people running the NDCA, and then, at the bottom, people just starting, and they have a lot of questions, right? Like the pro-ams and the bronze and the amateur and the collegiate, like they all don't know so much, and are very curious. I have no way to know because um you don't have access really to the time. I mean, it's not like I'm at the NDCA meetings or anything like that, but people talk to me, and so I thought I could at least ask some of the questions they want to know and have the conversations, or even if it's just champions, as you're doing. People want to know what they think, but how do you engage these people, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to bring more of what was sort of happening at the top down,
Mm-hmm.
and and let people at the bottom see what's that. Yeah, I didn't really go so much about to the just interviewing people. I didn't think that was like my strong suit. I like to think about things. I like kind of the philosophy and the epistemology of a lot of this. So those are the kind of conversations I like to have, and I wanted, and people just seemed interested, at least initially, and it's gone really well. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not like it's not a as you know, right? It's I release an episode when I feel like there's good stuff to talk about, and I've had a good conversation, and that's it, right? I wasn't good at doing the scheduled thing. Yeah, it's just my brand of trying to find interesting stuff to talk about, and when it happens, it happens.
Well, and I think that idea of I'm not going to release something for the sake of releasing it. I'm going to wait until I have a reason to have a really deep conversation with this person about this topic, and then if it comes out well, then I'll publish it. I think that makes for good quality, right? You
Hmm.
you have something to say then over the course of your podcast, and you are, even though it always is going to end up feeling slightly like an interview, you can boil it down to more of that. We're sitting around a table and just talking as friends, and these are the types of topics that come up. Um, and I think you are in a position with your history in the space, the fact that you are a judge, the fact that you have been in the industry a little bit longer, you're really in a position to bring people's guards down, and have conversations that for me to have would probably feel a little bit taboo at this time. So it's nice tuning into the
Yeah.
framework and kind of listening to some of that behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and I, I don't know how these sort of barriers were erected in the first place, but well, I mean, that's another interesting question, right?
Yeah.
Why does it seem that the people at the top are so, untouchable? They're so far. Like they're so good at this thing. I always try not to take myself too seriously, right? Like, what am I good at? And not even that great, like compared to the people at the best we have. But we're good at doing 5 dances. That's it. Like that's why we're walking around like strutting, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I've arrived all the time. Like that's my contribution to the world. I mean, you could say in one way we're teaching, we're really enriching people's lives, and that's true. But given some of the grandiosity of it all, it's like, do you understand this is all we're doing really, and this is our this
Yeah.
is our skill. It's a cool skill, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a cool skill. It's very marketable, and people really are happy engaging with you with it. But it's not like we're curing cancer,
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. My husband likes to tease me all the time because I'll get a yes out of someone for the podcast that I never thought in a million years that I would get, and I'll like run through the house and be like, "Oh my gosh, they said yes! I get to talk to so and so." And he's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
congrats."
Yeah.
They what did they do
Yeah.
again?
The rest of the world doesn't
Yeah.
care, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's this pull in one way. As I was saying earlier, I'm completely obsessed with this thing that we do, and this process, right? And thinking about it, and especially in the process of being a coach, like I take that very seriously in the micro, right? Like day to day, I can't, like, I'm just trying to be better, and provide the maximum value to my couples and my students. And then at the same time, to zoom out in macro and be like, and if like, and it doesn't matter, it's not really,
Yeah.
it could stop at any point. I have to be like, yeah, whatever, I was a dance teacher,
Yeah.
and so that calms down the stress a little bit later, so it's like it's that switch, I think, is helpful, because you can have perspective about, wow, this is so important to you, and you want everything to be perfect, and you want to improve and feel good, and what your status is, and whatever all that is. At the same time, be like, yeah, but it's fine.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of the world, it's whatever.
Yeah. Do you, with your coaching, are you more competitive based, or do you offer private lessons to couples, youth? What kind of space are you working in when you are in the studio?
Yeah, I'm sort of interested in the difficulty of teaching people who don't know anything. That's interesting to me, but even still, I have entirely competitive couples, mostly couples, which I feel blessed to have, because I think a lot of people wish they had more couples. Um, but yeah, I have a pretty decent, I don't know what you would call it, a team, I guess, or whatever, base of couples that are amateur competitors. And then I have a few pro-ams that I get to dance myself a little bit, still.
Yeah.
But yeah, my problem when I'm not teaching, because I think about this a lot, like, I have a friend who's like getting married, right? And they're like, oh, we would love for you to, help us. You're a friend, you do this, right? Like, that'd be really special. And I think like, well, I'm not the best person for it, first of all, right? There's someone who can do it better than me. So if I'm being honest, I should send you to them. And then also, I don't, I feel like if I'm going to teach a good lesson, I need to be able to define what is good first. And that's hard to find in something that's like an art.
Mm.
So the competition framework, although flawed in whatever ways it is, it still offers you a place to start and have an idea for what good is that. And so now let's kind of work backward and bring you in that direction. But without that, it's hard to say what's good. And so then I feel like I don't really know where I'm headed in teaching that person. Like, honestly, I can do like what I think is good, right? But who says that's good? In the competitive world, there's like this sort of agreed upon the market of judges,
Right.
has decided that for now, this period we're in, that type of dancing is good. And if you do something like that, you are likely to be rewarded. And so I kind of stick to that because I don't want to make my own decision about what, what art is good. And so because of that, I tend to stay on that side of things because it's more tangible, if you can call it tangible, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I am on the other end of the spectrum. I tend to work a lot with social couples that are just looking for date night or wedding couples, and then I occasionally have pro-am students that are like, yes, I want to compete. And it's stressful in a way, but it's also very comforting because you have that structure and that framework, and you can be like, okay, if you want to learn bronze syllabus, I know exactly how to get you through the bronze syllabus. Whereas if you have
yeah,
a wedding couple, it's like, okay, tell me what your dress looks like. Tell me what your goals are, what your knee injury was from, what the floor you're going to be on. Oh, you can't lift your arm
yeah,
because you're in sleeves. Okay, how do we take this out? All right, we've spent 3 hours on the box step and we're still not stepping backwards on our right foot. How can I adjust this for
yeah.
you?
I'm right there with you. Yeah. So this is what I mean. It's if someone comes in and says, I want to take a lesson because I want to, well, maybe even if I don't want to compete, but I want to learn that type of dancing, right out of the gate, you know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, or at least something like we're going to start over here somewhere, in this
Yeah.
general type of stuff, right? If they come in and say, well, we got to do a wedding dance, you don't know where to go without tons of more information to anchor you, right? And sort of set your North Star. Like, okay, now I know your floor is this big. Like, I need more things to just, because otherwise it's like, well, we're just going to dance, right? Like, how did you envision this going and all that. So yeah, so for me, it's always hard to sort out where's home base outside of the competitive world. I mean, I'm leaving it up to some non-dancers to tell me what they want, and then somehow I'm supposed to, yeah. So that's hard, and I have a huge amount of respect for people who can do that well, because that's just like a type of thinking, or like a sense of certainty that like where they're headed is the right direction that I don't have, like when I'm outside of the competitive world, right? Like, so yeah, like I said, I'm good at my one thing and that's it. So I mean, how do you find, is that, I mean, am I speaking out, like, I mean, I assume that's what it's sort of like for you
Yeah.
when you have someone who comes in and says, I just want to learn to dance, I'm going to go out. It seems helpful to still stick to sort of some of the established norms and the competitive stuff, like use a syllabus maybe.
Yeah, it's tricky, and that is something certainly that I am still developing in my own teaching style. Um, it's conversations that I'm still having with other instructors that are in the space to try and decide if what my gut feeling is the right answer is something else that other people have done. So for the longest time, I still stayed with the syllabus. It's like, all right, you're going to do bronze one, essentially. I'm not going to call it
Mm,
bronze one. I'm not going to use that terminology, but lesson one, we're going to learn a box step. We're going to learn a left rotating box. We're going to learn a underarm
yeah,
turn. I'm going to count it as slow, quick, quick, and I'm going to count it as 1, 2, 3 so it can work with 3, 4 and 4, 4 music. We'll go into a single time swing instead of a triple time swing. And we'll kind of just get you moving. Lately, I have been throwing that out the window for a lot of my couples, which is it's a very nerve-wracking thing to say. But most of the couples that walk in the door recently that I've had just want to be able to dance in their kitchen. They're not going to ballroom dance socials.
mm,
They're not going to the Vienna ball. They have no interest in competing. They might dance at a friend's wedding,
mm,
but they just want to dance at their
mm,
house comfortably for fun. So the entire lesson now becomes a merengue basic or a bachata basic, but not using those terms,
mm.
just getting them moving together. So it's really working more on the lead and follow framework that I think a lot of instructors,
Framework.
yeah, I know, right? Uh, but working on the lead and follow and the communication between the partners, which I think in a traditional syllabus style would be peppered later on in future dance lessons, but not the first thing that you teach when you walk in the door.
Mm. Yeah, it's hard to yeah, it's hard for me to know where to go. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess you want to dance in your kitchen. I mean, like, again, I always feel uncomfortable. So I feel like for me, the honest thing to do is just say, look, go to this person.
Yeah.
They're good at that. I'm not. Sorry. You know, I think again, like, well, not again, but I think it's difficult because I'm in a situation where having the next lesson come in and me converting them to a, regular client, paying the mortgage or the bills, like I don't feel that pressure.
Yeah.
I'm able to do something that is, I'm able to be honest in that way and just say, look, someone else is better at this than
Mhm.
me, and if you want a better version of that, someone else can do it better probably, and just
Yeah.
in a sense refer them to someone else. I think a lot of people, the truth is it's not the case, and they want it, they need it, right? They need the
Mhm.
business and respect, for hustling in that way and trying to do your best. um but I also think, like, if things were ideal, that's not the type of student they would want, because their thing is something else. So you're in this weird kind of standoff where you kind of know someone else might be better,
Yep.
but you need to eat.
Yeah.
So let's see if I can get them in and teach them something anyway. Um,
Yeah.
and then, you know,
There is a flip side to that though
there,
that I
go, yeah,
found,
that's rough.
which is that as scary as it might be if you are um, a gig worker, independent contractor, small business person, however you want to word it, if you are in the position where you are accepting people's time, accepting people's money, you can either accept everything that comes in through the door and be uncomfortable or feel like maybe you're not the best person for the job. Or you can say, nope, this is the one thing that I'm really good at, and I am only going to accept this segment of clientele, but I'm going to build a reputation and I'm going to build my business on this cornerstone. And the first
Yeah.
6 months, year, 2 years, while you're building that reputation for yourself is going to be real hard. But if you look 5, 10, 15 years down the line, then you haven't put yourself in a situation where you're just teaching anyone that comes in the door.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You put it that way. So the time value aspect, right? Like, so we do something, we set a price point, somewhere in the past, and felt right, and then over time maybe raised it, maybe we didn't, depending on
Mm-hmm.
how the market responds, right? And so we're exchanging time in the context of this skill or this hobby, whatever you want to call it. And so for me, it seems like, well, so the rates I charge, or the value of that lesson, is pegged to my ability to produce or to provide value in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I were to teach a lesson on something else but charge the same, to me that feels like, well, that's not why I charge that much. I'm not good at that. Or at least I'm not that good at it, right? So to so then again, I don't know how to think of, what's my time worth? Is my time worth this just because I've decided my time is worth this? Doesn't matter what I'm doing, So it's, I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but when I think of that way, it's like, well, why is my time, my just general time is worth that more than someone else? Why is that person's time worth less? Well, then it must be because there's some differential in our skill at this thing, I guess. And so, yeah, I mean, so if I would pay a lawyer $500 an hour to do this, it's, like, supposedly because they're that good of, they're a better lawyer than the $400 guy.
Right.
Right. And if I wanted to do a different type of law, I shouldn't be paying him $500 for that when he's not that good at that.
Right.
So yeah, so that's again, if I was going to teach a wedding dance, I should probably charge $20 an hour for that because I'm not good at it. These are interesting things to think about. Yeah. These are interesting things to think about. For me, like, what is my, people say that, well, that's my time. My time is worth that. I'm like, yeah, why? Based on what?
Yeah.
And is all usage of your time, or all usage of your time worth the same? just because you're used to charging that, really, anyway, yeah, so that's all. These are the things I like to talk about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to your time, what your time is worth.
My time.
So amateur competitive couples, obviously not currently given the state of the world, but previously and hopefully in the future, you are associated with a university. Do you coach the university from a collegiate competition perspective or specifically from an amateur couple perspective?
Oh, interesting. I guess both. I mean, from a competitive approach, I think the best thing for, well, at least for me, is to consider that these people are going to dance together forever, hopefully. And as far as when I come in to help facilitate that, if I do my job well, I can help keep them together, because it always gets rough at some point. But yeah, I always assume they're going to transition to basically I mean, the transition is kind of a murky thing anyway. They just graduate college. Are they going to keep dancing or not? Right. And many of them, yes. And many of them, especially, yes, if they do well and have a good time. So it's almost like the more you assume they're going to keep doing this, the more likely you are to teach the type of lesson that helps them keep doing this. So I like, yeah, I like treating them like they're any amateur couple, right? They're just young. So, and then when it comes to the team aspect, I think, well, the truth is it's not a team sport unless it's a formation team, right? So for the most part, it's not, at least not in the in the team I teach, but it is very much like a team sport, or it feels like it in the training. So in the studio on campus, or even in your own studio, right? There's a sense that we're a kind of a team, and that at least we train together, maybe like sprinting, like you train together and you go out and you compete against each other, but still you feel like a unit more than you would with the people from another country, right? So like Jamaica in sprinting, right? You have like the best sprinters in the world somehow from this tiny country, three of them in the world, best in the world, all from there. They're going to compete against each other. I guess in the relay they're a team, right? But
Right.
they're competing against each other. But the fact that they train together so diligently, right, and that builds a camaraderie, at least you would say camaraderie,
Mm.
is very helpful, and it's worth being a team for that benefit, right? You get into a very much a steel sharpened steel.
Mm.
You can see this effect up until recently in England. So for a long time, most of the best dancers in the world came from England, and you had them train like top three in the world, all in the same studio, same teacher, just grinding away, trying to beat each other, and in the meanwhile passing everyone else,
Mm.
right? And if they were not, if they somehow had to stay so far away from each other where they were never seeing, what the other guy was doing and trying to outdo each other, I think they would be worse off for it. So on the competition day, you're your own unit, you do your best, and I think training them to be successful amateur couples in the long run is good. But in the studio, creating an atmosphere of teaminess and camaraderie, very beneficial, not just because it feels nice to, be part of a community, and that may actually be the biggest benefit, but it also is helpful to you to kind of, in a
Yeah.
friendly way, joust and kind of one up each other.
That has to be a hard thing to balance, though. Striking the right chord between building a family, building a supportive team, to go cheer each other on at competitions, while also maintaining an inner team competitive aspect to it. How do you strike
Yeah.
that balance between asking the most out of your couples to compete for themselves, but also wanting to build an atmosphere that is cordial and friendly, um, not at each other's throats all the time?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's really difficult, and you probably never really get it exactly right. Like the team gets, super competitive at some point, and that's ends up being toxic. Um, and then, yeah, I don't have any problem firing people, right? Just go, right? Like it's not worth interrupting the vibe of everyone just because you've got a weird problem. So there are just bad apples. Um, and then you got teams that can be a little too like, oh yeah, we're just friendly and having fun, and we go to comps because we like it, and then you're like, well, but you could be more, if you had a little bit more of that tenacity. So you kind of go back and forth. I think I would err um, on the side of the teaminess over the individual, you got to win at all costs sort of thing, because it doesn't feel nice like day to day to go into work when everyone's so charged, right? So I think having a big team with a lot of people that are happy to learn to dance and try to compete is better than having like 3 killer like champions that are just so good, but the energy is not helpful,
Right.
I mean, that can also be inspiring for a certain type of person. So yeah, but it's a difficult balance to maintain. I err toward community because I think it's always better. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, the COVID situation, I think it's really taught people that a lot of what they miss about the dancing is not really just getting up and moving. It's also that sort of home feeling in the studio, or the competition and seeing your friends. Like we have a community. It's pretty tight, and it's nice.
Yeah, it's definitely found family when it's done right, and you
Well
go to
said.
competitions to cheer people on, to compete for yourself, obviously for those that are doing well, to get the external validation of your awards and your achievements, but it's really about being part of something much larger and wanting the best out of everyone in the room, so that the sport can continue. Um, how do you strike the balance between?
Sorry to interrupt, but just to put a cap on that, I think the way I often talk about it with those sort of intense couples that want to win, I think it's pretty reasonable and true to just say, look, it really is in your best interest to have your number one competitor right next to you. Like that's going to make you better. And actually, there are a few. There's a Blackpool lecturer, I think it was Andrew Sinkinson, who was a tremendous icon from the, let's say, up through the 80s and 90s. He was talking about how, at a moment he was supposed to be lecturing, he was caught in a sort of unawares by an emotional moment, thinking back to his competition days and saying that, he was a better dancer because of his competitors, and if that's true, and it is, then as a competitor, even though it's uncomfortable, and even though you may end up on the short side of that stick and you may be just, second place all the time, you're still better than you would have been without it, where you might have been sixth, right? Like you're strong because that push puts you way ahead of anyone else. So if I can get that through and let them know the real truth of that, they're usually eventually happy to have other like-minded, serious people around, and it's not so much conflict.
Definitely. Well, and that actually brings me back to something that we talked about in the very beginning, which is that idea of coming from a small pond to a bigger pond and suddenly realizing the difference, and like figuring out how to still be competitive in this larger world. I mentioned on a previous episode my own experience moving to Utah and suddenly having this, oh goodness, I have a sea of information that I do not know. How in the world am I going to learn it as quickly as possible? What was your experience?
Where were you coming from?
So I was on a collegiate team in West Virginia, and then I was teaching out of Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So
Utah's become, I mean, it's always been pretty serious, but they're like even more serious over there, right? Yeah. So
oh yeah,
that's talk about a serious pond to be in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I kind of knew that when I first moved. Obviously BYU and UVU have their fantastic reputations for amateur and collegiate programs. What I didn't realize until I was actually living out here is how many of the So You Think You Can Dance, Dancing with the Stars, the performance dancers are also born and bred in Utah.
Yeah, a lot of pretty people out there, I think, like really good with the camera.
Yeah, a lot of pretty people that have been dancing since they were 2. Yeah.
Yeah. They come out of the womb with the feet closed. Or turn out.
Exactly. So what was your experience when you first moved to the Bay Area? You mentioned that you suddenly had this kind of wake up call that you were not at the level that you thought you were previously at. How did you turn that into motivation to get to the level that you're currently at?
So I remember walking into the now closed, but it was called the Metronome Ballroom at the time. So I walked in there, and that was in San Francisco. And right nowadays, there aren't really any studios in San Francisco. Commercial real estate's become space, right? So it's very expensive. But I walked in there because a friend that I had met on some message boards while I was in Hawaii, who was from the Bay Area, she suggested that I maybe contact one of these few teachers that were teaching there. So I called this woman. It happened to be Valentina Kutsenko, so the smooth champion, when she used to live here. And so one of my first lessons in the Bay Area was with her. And so that was already sort of a new thing, right? Like I got in position with this superstar, right? Actually, I didn't know who she was at the time, but she's like, okay, let's do a little dancing. And once I had her in my arms, I was like, Jesus, right? Like just power and like just I didn't know what to do, right? So she was nice about it. But then a couple walked in who was, I think, a youth couple. They were like 18 maybe, so I guess on the end of youth or something. But you could tell they were like, they were younger than me. I think I don't remember. Anyway, so yeah, so they're dancing, and then I guess a group of them came in, or maybe they weren't youth, maybe they were just out of youth, but young people, maybe my age, slightly younger. And they just started practicing, and it was like I'd never seen live that kind of dancing, except for like the one time in the pro at the Hawaii Star Ball. And I was like, Jesus, like that, I didn't know this was even possible. And it just seems like a nothing thing for them to just hear on another practice day. Like they're so good. And I had that normal moment where I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm not going to be able to like do that, right? Like it's too late. They're good, whatever. But then the same thing sort of happened. I'm like, yeah, well, some of these girls are pretty cute though. So I mean, if not these girls, at least if that's, I mean, that's I don't know what else I'm going to do. I just moved here, right? Might as well at least try and learn to dance better and maybe get in with that crowd.
There you go.
So yeah, a couple of things. I'm stubborn. I'd pushed through a lot of those sort of barriers of doubt and sort of imposter syndrome in other things. In martial arts and surfing, and I did a lot of rodeo, when I was a kid, oddly. And so I kind of was quick with having that conversation and getting past it. But for a lot of people I know, that's sort of the kiss of death, right? It's seeing the top and then suddenly knowing how far you are, and that can demoralize them a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I just was like, well, I'm gonna like crawl up into a ball and die, right? So I like this, okay, so I suck, whatever, I won't suck for long. And then I actually asked them real questions. I'm like, how long have you been doing this? And they're like, I've been doing this for, I guess one of them started when they were in their early teens, so 7 years, something like that. I thought, well, that's not too bad, like I'll still be in my 20s. I'll just work hard. How much do you practice? Oh, I do 2 hours a day. Okay, so if I do 4 hours a day, I can do it in 3.5 years. I mean, that's simple math, but I thought, so that suddenly it wasn't too bad, and then for a lot of the day, I didn't, after work, I didn't have much to do. So I thought, yeah, 3.5, 4 hours, I can do that. Maybe some days I'll do 6, cut it down to 2.5 years, just dumb, right? Like just thinking that it was all math. But like that got me past like the initial, I'll never be that good and do it. And then, got me ready to grind, because many other things, it's just a grind.
Yeah. It's putting in the time, putting in the hours, putting in the repetition. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, probably, I know the Bay Area was pretty intense, but I imagine Utah might have been a little more intense. I don't know. So something interesting about Utah is without knowing for sure, I hear it's very cliquey. And I hear it's cliquey in a way that's also interesting because of the involvement of the church, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's affected um, like your integration into the dance scene over there. Is it like I assume it's maybe better if you're also a member, um, easier to
Yeah.
get in maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think for someone that is not growing up in Utah, the easiest way to get into the dance scene in Utah is to go to either BYU or UVU. If you can qualify for their
Uh,
teams, you've got a partnership, you're in. Um, I came to Utah post graduation, so going back for an undergrad was not in my plans. Um, I'm not a member
mm.
of the LDS church, so I stick out like a sore thumb that way. Yeah, I think my mindset.
You stick out like a sore thumb because just everyone knows whether or not people are affiliated. Is that what it is?
Well, it took
Or
me.
do you not have a patch? Or
It took me a very long time to realize that I grew up on the East Coast, so if you want to get to know someone, a colleague, a friend, whomever, you say, oh, we should grab a cup of coffee sometime. Well, you can't drink hot beverages if you're a member of the LDS church.
oh yeah, right.
You
Oh,
can't
so you out
say,
yourself that way.
right. You can't say, oh, it's Friday
With a
night,
Starbucks cup, you are known.
you know,
I see.
after a competition. Oh, let's go get drinks. Right. You don't
Mm,
drink. Okay.
yeah.
Um, so so a lot of
Tea. Oh, can you have tea?
you can't have tea, but they can have hot cocoa.
Oh, okay.
No. But
Maybe
you
camel, maybe herbal tea, huh?
something. But you were mentioning before that you were
Yeah. Well,
partially LDS. You were LDS for an
yeah.
amount of
Well,
time.
as far as I know, I think there's a pretty strong presence in the Pacific, and so there was a BYU. I don't know if you call it a satellite, sort of up the road from where I grew up, partially anyway, partially where I grew up. So I didn't know. I mean, as a kid, we went to church, or what I thought was just church, right? And I didn't really understand that there were different brands of Christianity. You know,
Mm.
it just Jesus and stuff. And and then I think on Monday afternoons, the missionaries would come over, and that was really cool because they were like young guys, and we'd chat. And I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention, maybe, but like I thought, it's just that Bible, this Bible, Book of Mormon, it's another gospel.
Mhm.
I didn't really pay attention, so maybe I was a bad, a bad Mormon in that way. But anyway, at some point we moved, and I just sort of found out that we used to be that, and now we're not. We just go to this church, and we're just other Christians now because
Mm.
it's convenient. And now that I'm saying that, it sounds like we were bad participants. But it was a community
Yeah.
that we were in, and there were a lot of like really nice people, very welcoming. And so, yeah, I mean, it just sounded like we were in a cool group.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was that, right? It's only really when I moved over here and then realized, how prevalent there is a community in the dance world, like, you know did I really sort of look into like what is it,
Mm.
because for me as a kid, I moved around a lot, with my parents split up, and so I was religion was sort of in a little bit here and there, but
Mm.
mostly like wherever we were, because my parents had so much on their plate, but they wanted it to be in our lives in some way, but it had to be like convenient, like had to be able to get us there and back, when they weren't juggling work and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess technically I was of the cloth for a while.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, the ways that I had learned growing up were ways to socialize with people in a new area. Um, were not really readily acceptable in the same way when I moved to Salt Lake. The good thing is that I moved to Salt Lake and not Utah County. There's nothing wrong with Utah County, but I think being an outsider in so many ways, it would have been even more extreme had I moved to
Mm,
Provo and Orem. Salt Lake is more diverse, a lot of transplants. There's large tech boom, so it felt less obvious that I was not from Utah, at least initially. Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I don't know. It's been an interesting experience.
Why did you end up there?
My husband,
Oh,
as
okay.
is most often the case, he was offered a job, so we moved.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, the tech boom over there is really interesting. Every year when I go for the Provo Nationals,
Mhm.
it's just like growing and growing over there. That drive up to Provo is always a little different with the, giant structures everywhere coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, through late.
I mean, I understand, I think they call it the promised land. But I mean, it's beautiful, man.
It's
Especially staying in Provo like that weekend, like the snow is just coming down. It's not so bad anymore. It's on the mountains there. It's stunning. I
yeah.
mean, I was never a mountain person. I didn't have the opportunity growing up in Hawaii. I was just a beach person most of my life. But that having it all happen there with that sort of majesty ahead of you, I can see why a band of people might have arrived there in the past and be like, "This is where we're staying."
Yeah, we're good. We found it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
let's just
Yeah.
stay here.
It is gorgeous. Utah has been very kind to me. But yeah, it
What's
definitely
what are your thoughts? I'm curious about the the sudden proliferation during COVID of everyone's online presence. Something that's been fun to watch from my perspective is um, people that would have said probably straight to your face in January, let's say, or February, like, take lessons online. Why would you do that? Just come into the studio and take lessons, right? Like, that's a waste of time. You're not going to learn anything. The 180 on these sort of subjects from many people uh, now, it's
yeah.
like, well, we have an online seminar, and by the way, we're doing a webinar on this, a Zoom meeting, and and now I have a podcast. We have two podcasts.
Yeah.
So suddenly, yeah, it's there's a big pivot into all of that, and I'm just, from my angle, I just, because I don't teach online, I don't want to do it, so I still just go into the studios. How retro, and but I'm still watching it all happen with great interest.
Yeah, I love it. I'm fully supportive of it. Obviously, the podcast came out of the pandemic for me. I am teaching online lessons a lot now. I think access to information, the more access that you can have to information, the better. Like the fact that there are a couple of different dance apps out there now that have some of the world's best dancers that are offering, instructional tutorials on their drills or workshops, I think is great. Um, from a pro-am coach perspective, I am a huge fan that all of these wonderful individuals have figured out how to use Zoom. So I can have a lesson with I can bring a coach in to work with my students without having to fly them across the country to work with my
Oh,
students.
you're doing that too. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So no, I love it. I think everyone's approach to it has kind of been interesting. You have some people uh that are doing, the bite-sized content. You have folks that are doing memberships, pay for it versus free, private lesson versus pre-recorded content. Um, I think it's interesting. I think dance needed a push into the 21st century, and if this got us there, then
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm obviously an advocate, right? As a podcast person, but it's I think it'll be good moving forward. Everyone will have a little bit more of an open mind of sort of possibilities.
Yeah.
And well, like we were talking about earlier, it's right. It's like, well, our jobs require us to go in a way where the state governments are often not really okay with for the time being,
Mhm.
and you got to pay the rent, right?
Yeah.
So I respect the hustle, in some
Yeah.
way. Yeah. So I like that. It's just what I found interesting was the vehement, like, no, don't go do online stuff, right? And then now, like, well, let's do online stuff.
Well,
It's been funny to watch.
I think an interesting consequence of that, and I was talking with Wayne 2 weeks ago about this. I think one of the issues that we've had in the past is, anyone and everyone can create a YouTube video, right? With zero
Yeah.
qualifications or with
Yeah.
all of the qualifications. Anyone can record a YouTube video.
Yeah.
So I think if good quality instructors are now going to be available online, if you can get anyone's workshop, anyone's lecture series available online, it's going to educate the consumer in a way that they haven't previously been educated about what to look for in the dance instruction that they are seeking. So whether that's asking about certifications or looking for buzzwords like Dance Vision or NDCA or ISTD or Fred Astaire or Arthur Murray, and knowing that those are related to syllabi. What is a syllabi? What is the process for making sure that your dance instructor that's on the
Yeah.
other side of the screen actually knows what they are talking about?
Yeah, I've seen a number of sort of Facebook fights, if you can call that, about people commenting on, you would say you know, whether or not someone was qualified to be teaching online lessons at some rate. It was a decent rate. It was like $65 an hour for someone who's a pro-am student to actually teach someone online.
Mm.
And then other pros in the area, of course, jumping on them, be like, why you're a pro-am student? Why are you teaching? Why are you charging this much? Blah, blah, blah. And that student was like, why can't I?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not charging as much as you, but I can at least teach a beginner, and this is what I want to charge. And it got really heated. And in a way, when you remove all the gatekeepers, it's one thing when it's like entertainment content,
Mm.
right? Like, you can watch all the entertainment you want, and the networks are not deciding what's airing. It's like, well, you can have all of it when you want, whenever you want, and so it choose your entertainment as you like. When it's something like information that's hopefully you want to be good because you're trying to learn a skill, when you remove the gatekeepers, you suddenly realize the value of the gatekeepers. With the people to say these people are good and therefore qualified, they have this, they have this, they have this, we have decided they're good, and they kind of not christen they knight you.
Yeah.
And send you out there, right? And you've been deemed worthy. Because otherwise we end up in that sort of situation like you're talking about, where person X can say, I'm the best teacher in the world. Person other X can say the same, person Y, and to a non dancer who doesn't know the difference, they can readily follow either for a long time and not know that that it wasn't the same. So yeah, I'm actually curious how the hell we kind of bridge that gap of, yeah, everyone can put something out, but can we be honest? This is the worst part. Can we be honest and say that not all practitioners are equally as good?
Yeah.
That's very unpopular to say. It's hard to say because you don't want to be the guy who says I'm not as good as them, because then everyone, especially with an online audience, like everyone can just shift immediately and go over there, right? So they got to kind of say like they are. But if we can't say that not everyone is of the same skill, honestly, then we have no way to filter out, and I don't know. It seems like it's going to be messy otherwise.
Yeah, it's tricky. I liken it to the same situation that you run into with tradespeople. So if you are looking for a plumber, you're probably going to look for a licensed
Yeah.
plumber. You're looking for an electrician, you're going to look for a licensed electrician. That doesn't mean that there aren't unlicensed electricians out there that are doing work, but you as a consumer,
sometimes.
right? Sometimes better. But you as a consumer, you're going to look, okay, what are the certifications of the person that I'm hiring? What are their reviews? What are their prices? And then for you as a consumer, with that information, you can decide what you want to prioritize. Is it price? Is it reviews? Is it qualifications? And depending on what area of the country you're in or what country you're in, you might not have access or good access to a local dance instructor that is a world champion or has been certified by one of the adjudicating organizations.
Yeah, likely not. Yeah. I mean, there's so few of them to go around, and incentives are such that if you are that sort of tier, then you'd want to be in a more of a metropolitan area where you can command a higher price.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting how we sort that out. I mean, even the certification systems themselves have certain tiers to them, right? Like you would say, like if you ask someone, there was a while where being certified by the ISTD was like the thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then that wasn't as good as terpsichore, or that wasn't as good as just having Arthur Murray, you know. So
Yeah.
even then you don't know, because I think what happened was there was one certification system and someone else thought like, well, I'm gonna make my own again, right? I can write my
Mm-hmm.
own book and make my own syllabi, and no one stopped me from doing that. And as long as I get enough people to buy in, then I've got what are we talking about? Like the process of how do you find out what is the best source at your price target, I guess. What's your gut tell you on which metric is it? Is it reviews? Is it results of students? Is it, what is it?
I think right now it depends on what the student's goal is. I think Google reviews right now, just across the board are king. If you have somebody that's walking in the first day that is not part of our industry, very rarely are you going to have someone that does a Google search or something that says like, oh, who were the top Latin professional dancers of the last decade. Okay, now how in the world do I find their contact information to figure out what city they teach in? No, unless you are a competitive mindseted person, you're gonna Google ballroom dance studio in your local city and see who has the best reviews. I would hope then once they walk in the door that they're looking for some of those buzzwords, or looking for an indication somewhere along the line of why this person is calling them a professional dance instructor. But I don't know if the consumer is educated enough now to be asking those questions.
Yeah, they would have to know what the certifications themselves are, right? It's like, oh, I have a DeVita license. What's DeVita? I have a USISTD license. What is that?
Yeah.
Like, okay, sounds good. I don't know what it means, but at least you did something.
And how many of us are volunteering that information on the first lesson, right? Like we're not. We're saying, hi, how you doing? What are we working on? Let's get started.
Almost by definition, the better the teacher is, the less likely you are to find them, because they're just busy. Mm-hmm. They don't need a website. Yeah. You know, they need to have a Yelp page to have a review or whatever it is, right? They're booked, and they got a waiting list. Yep. So you're never going to hear about them. That's what almost always happens, right? Is that you've been in a scene for a while, and then you realize that they're these people that are they're the people that the people you work with go to.
Right.
And you wish you knew so that you could go to them, but you can't. You can't get on the list, right? Yeah. In a way. And there's no like I just logged on to Richard Glee's website and booked a lesson. Like, you can't. Like, he doesn't need a website. He doesn't need the lead generating stuff, so you can't find him.
Well, and that goes back to those, the tiered nature of our industry, the fact that there are certain conversations happening behind certain curtains or behind certain doors that other people at a different level are not privy to. It's the same with taking lessons. Unless you know how to get in touch with people, you're not getting in touch with people for coaching lessons or training lessons.
Yeah. I always wondered when I met someone, like, they're like, can I get a lesson? Okay, yeah. When do you want it? I don't know. I mean, when do you have a spot? Oh yeah, I have lots of availability. And I'm always like, oh. should I be concerned, or it's, how do you educate the consumer on something that, again, at least with a plumber, actually I don't know, plumbers are so vital. I mean, they've saved more people than doctors, over the years, like hygiene.
Yeah.
But yeah, dancing, again, like I said, it was like, if only we were as important as plumbers. Yeah. In a way, a lot of the people that I know that are on, you have so many things. Yelp, Google, whatever reviews, Thumbtack, TaskRabbit, I don't know, whatever, all the different places where someone can find you and then hire you.
Yeah.
There, those sort of people, and I don't mean those sort of people in any other way than the people that are on those and that generate leads that way. We really need them, because I've heard someone say, and they said it sort of tongue in cheek, I think, but it was just that they're the front end of the dance business,
Yeah.
right? Like they will get people in and get them interested and get them excited. And unfortunately, they have a pretty big turnover, because eventually people, well, not a pretty big turnover, but there's a type of student who then like sees, oh, there's another level, another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that teacher is not really the teacher for them. And then they kind of move on and they go up that ladder, up the tiers, because those people at the top, they don't do that. They don't want to do that. They don't even have that skill set, if you want to call it marketing or whatever, right? To figure out how to get new people off the street. They're kind of just counting on the other people to get them in, get them interested, and just assuming those people are going to move on eventually and one of them might find them. I think it's actually a weakness in that business model. I think everyone would be better served finding out, if I moved to a new area and no one knew who I was, I should be able to get people off the street and teach them how to dance. And I think we're actually finding that now. But yeah, that seems to be the filter up process that happens.
Well, and it goes back to networking amongst those levels, right? So if you and I were in the same city, I would hope that if I had a couple, I've worked with them for 15 hours, they're starting to say, okay, I do want to start competing at a very high level. I see some spark of inspiration in them, and I get them to a point where maybe I'm not the right instructor. I can be like, you know what? I've got this guy over here. He does competitive amateur students at a really high level. Let me give you his business information. And on the flip side, if you had somebody reach out that said, I really want to learn a wedding dance to the song from Dirty Dancing, you can be like, you know what? That's not my game, but I've got this lady over here.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Go over, right? So finding.
Yeah, well, I think that's important, because your students will then really feel like they can trust you.
Yes.
Right. Like you really test someone's honesty when they will tell you something that's not in their immediate best interest. They'll tell you anyway, and it's like, okay, well, this person is willing to tell me something that is not directly benefiting them, but is the truth still.
Yep.
And then if I were recommending someone else, I would definitely want to send them to the person that's trustworthy, that I can know is going to level with me. So yeah, that can only be a good thing, I assume. I mean, I've heard that myself. It's almost always in some capacity when I try and refer someone to someone else, they double down and want to stay because they just suddenly feel like they can trust me more.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you know what? I can't do the wedding dance. Sorry. Can you go to some? Well, but we really just feel like we can trust you. So could you help us?
Yeah.
We're like, yes, you can trust me, but still I'm not the guy, right? Like,
right.
I can't do it. Right. So you can trust me from over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what you can trust is that if I do it, it's not going to be very good, or it's not going to be as good as if you went to someone else. So, but sure, if you really want to, my friends will do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a good thing. Right. And I think, there's a lot of not that, because again, and I understand it, people need to keep people around, right? Like I get it. So I'm not judging, but it's just, it's a tough spot to be in,
Definitely. And I think our industry is an interesting one because it is consumer-facing business, it is competitive sport, and then it is artistic expression. And there are so many different moving parts and different motivations for wanting to learn ballroom dancing or want to be a part of ballroom dancing. And those aren't always congruous with each other. There are a lot of times where the art and the business are in conflict, or the sport and the business are in conflict. And how do we rectify that situation so that we can get this industry that you and I are so both passionate about out to as many people as possible, and to share it with the world in hopefully a positive way, not a negative way.
Yeah, I have nothing but respect for that, the people that are good at that, because like I said, it's not. I just love everyone who's good at stuff I'm not good at, and I always want to talk to them and find out what's that like. I think very early on that teacher was right. She's like, I don't have enough time, and I'm going to be more helpful to everyone by just really drilling down at the one thing I can do, offering maximum value at that one thing, and leaving the rest to everyone else, like when what they're good at, right? So yeah, when people are like, I know this one guy in our area, he is, yeah, I think the truth is you wouldn't call him like a top tier teacher, although everyone's business card says, oh, from social to competitive, right? Like,
Yeah.
which is funny. It's of course it's true, but it's like true with quotes.
Yeah.
It's a specific truth. So he says that he's not a low tier teacher either, right? You would say, somewhere in the middle. But this guy is super good at just drumming up people from various walks of life, and always networking with nonprofits and things. And he's just got this energy about him that he just, I don't know, just people keep coming in. Not everyone stays with him for very long, but he himself is responsible for so many sort of connected teachers and stuff being very, very booked, because he does the thing that those guys can't do. And if you think of the scene as sort of an ecosystem, like a forest, right? Like he's the canopy at the top pulling in all the energy, and then it sort of drops down to feed the rest of the forest at the bottom. So or at the top, I guess, upside down.
Yeah.
Super important, super interesting.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, there are many more conversations to be had, I am sure, but we will go ahead and
the good ones always go for 2+ hours.
Yeah. So anything else, going back into interview mindset rather than conversation mindset, anything else that you want our listeners to be aware of before we wrap for today?
No, I think now's a really good time to do sort of the thing we're doing. Like, I guess if anything, just keep thinking about everything. Keep thinking about everything. Keep thinking about interesting questions and interesting ways of looking at wherever we are, and it'll certainly get better. And I'm actually curious if you had like one pressing issue that is like the thing that needs to be figured out about what we do. What is it? Right. Like, and I mean, in like the most honest way, like if you really got to pick and you weren't going to be judged, it wasn't going to affect your career at all, and you could say it in publicly without getting pilloried by, the who knows who, what would that be? Like, that's what I always want to know, because that's probably the most interesting thing to discuss. And the only thing that's more interesting to discuss than that thing is actually, why can't we discuss it?
Yeah.
That's also it.
Yeah.
So I get from a lot of people, well, I can't talk about that, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So anyway, so I love this. I think we should do more of it, and maybe if you do have an answer to that, we can save that for next time.
There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If you are listening and watching this now, I'm going to tell you two things to do. The first is to hit the subscribe button and the like button, because I have to, because it's YouTube. And then the second is go find the Framework podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice, and make sure you are following that as well. So I will link in the description below. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you for having me. It's a big pleasure.
Thank you again to Ikaika Dowsett for being a guest on today's podcast. If you want to check out the Framework podcast, like we mentioned, the link will be in the description box below. As I also mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I have also included the link to the GoFundMe campaign to help offset some of the medical expenses for Ron Montez's family. Once again, I'm Samantha, your host from Love.Live.Dance. You can find all of the podcast versions of these episodes at ballroomchat.com, and you can find us across social media at Ballroom Chat. If you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed to this channel, give us a thumbs up, post a positive comment below if you like these types of videos. As always, stay safe, stay positive, and we hope to see you dancing very soon.